2025. We are at the Rosewood Center at 419 East Main Street, May 11th. We are in our City of Liberty regular session. Councilman Member Cantley, would you go ahead and open us in a word of prayer?
Lord, thank you for the opportunity to gather here today to make decisions on behalf of Liberty and all of our constituents. Please help us to work together to make sound decisions and to benefit everyone in our city to be able to prosper and help us to find any issues that we may remedy, whether it's in the budget or otherwise. Amen.
Rise to the pledge.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will go ahead and move into the public session. Did we have any sign-up? Gina?
Good evening. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Gina O'Shea. I work for the City of Liberty in the accounting department. And I only have a few questions to ask, and I'm going to try to get it all in my time. Quick question for the council members. Why did you run for council?
I'll go first. I wanted to help keep Liberty as great as possible, keep it the Liberty, and I wanted to help be a voice for my ward and maybe tackle some things that haven't happened for some time.
I ran to be the best I could be for my constituents, represent my constituents.
Perfect.
So I ran to support the local people here. I've been in the city and saw that they needed some additional representation, and I wanted to be part of that.
Perfect.
I ran because I've been here my entire life, and hopefully I could make a difference or make things better.
Okay.
If given an opportunity.
Okay. Those are all great answers. Okay. Now that we know each other well enough, let's say, does everybody have a chicken account? Y'all have a debit card? Email addresses? Okay. Great. Mailing address? Would you be willing to get all of that information to me? Passwords? Let me do this. I'm going to lock you out of it for the next 4 years, and I'm going to take it all on myself. Don't ask me questions. Just trust that I'm going to do it all for you. Would any of you be willing to do that? No? Then why would you lock the residents of the City of Liberty out of a public audit, a forensic audit? If you don't want me to know your information, what is your reasoning for not letting the citizens know our information? We have nothing to hide. We're all new people, brand new cast of characters. My question is, why are you against an audit for the city?
I'm personally not against an audit.
Right, that's good.
Yeah, I've supported that since I was running for council.
Yeah.
The first section of this is that this isn't really a communication position. This is a public input, and it's not typically in this council a back and forth in a question and answer kind of a session.
Then you don't have to answer my question.
So just so that we're good with that. And but personally, I think that we need an audit. The question is, what kind of an audit, and what do we need to have, and what part do we have to do up front, and what part do we have to do in the end? At the end of the day, we have talked about doing audits, and we've had a lot of conversation, and I don't think we're done yet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, Gina.
environmental department manager over in Terracon. Our offices are in Grable and Spartanburg for our location. We are 180 offices countrywide. I'm here today to talk to you about the brownfield grant. There's grab that one. Just noted, Mary. Sorry.
Can you guys hear me now?
Here we go. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to start. My name is Janelle Davis. I am the Environmental Department Manager for Terracon. We work through contract with the City of Liberty to help y'all manage the Brownfield Grant. With me today is Callie Williams. She's an environmental scientist in our office. She's going to help me go over some of the specifics of the grant. And let's go ahead and get started. Does anyone show of hands, does anyone know that the City of Liberty currently had this $500,000 grant? Raise your hand if you do. Anyone? Okay. Does anyone raise your hand if you know what a brownfield grant is? Has anyone ever had to work with one before? Okay. So you guys are going to be very enlightened, for sure. I'll you go to the next one. Before we get too much information, I just want to go over who the stakeholders are. So obviously the City of Liberty was given this $500,000 EPA grant. So the EPA is involved, the South Carolina DES, Terracon, the ASECO group who handles communications. They work alongside of the City of Liberty and Terracon to help spread the word of the grant. Local organizations, and then you community members and council members. So the most important stakeholder, though, is the member of the community. You are the driving force of this grant, and you are going to help us revitalize the community through the usage of this grant. Up here on the screen is the legal definition of what a brownfield grant is. However, in just terms that's easy to digest, a brownfield site is a property whose full use is hindered by fears of environmental contamination. We are here to help utilize the grant to remove those fears. Knowledge is power, and we're able to grow the City of Liberty through this grant money. So in 2022, the City of Liberty was awarded $500,000 from the EPA. This grant's overall goal is to assess brownfield properties within the city, quantify any environmental impacts, and spur redevelopment of these properties. Some of these tasks include site identification, due diligence, which is phase 1, phase 2, asbestos surveys, lead-based paint surveys, wetland delineations. We can help remediate and reuse. We are doing some community outreach. We did a waffle festival a few years ago. We have a steering committee that meets on a quarterly basis to discuss moving this grant forward. And we also provide programmatic support and regulatory reporting. Like I said, this grant was awarded in 2022. We still have almost nearly all of the funds still available for use. So we are here today to help spread more of the word, get in front of y'all, and see if you had any properties or knew anybody with properties that would want to have their property assessed under this grant. This map here is the outline of the City of Liberty. Any site that falls within this boundary is eligible for funding under this grant. It could be commercial, it could be residential, multi-family residential, it just can't be single-family residential homes. What does the grant do? So the grant assesses commercial properties, as I said, commercial and industrial properties for environmental impacts. It does not assess single-family residential properties. It can lead to potential site cleanup and redevelopment. Money from this grant cannot be used to clean up sites, but it can be used to identify sites that are in need of remediation. It can help identify sites that have underground storage tanks that can be removed underneath this grant. It can help conduct asbestos surveys and lead-based paint surveys. We work with the property owners to assess. In this no way does not punish any property owners. It does not close businesses or create jobs. It just helps spur redevelopment and revitalization of the city. It can increase redevelopment of brownfields, underutilized properties, facilitates job growth in the community, improves and protects the environment, and strengthens the marketplace. These are some common examples of different brownfield sites. It could be vacant properties, abandoned properties, former dry cleaners, current dry cleaners, former gas stations, current gas stations, landfills, industrial properties, junkyards. Some of our priority sites when this grant started were the mill. There was apparently a big mill and a little mill. We drove by both today, so both of those are priority sites when we are looking at redeveloping these properties for different utilization. We have some example sites here of properties that may not look like brownfield sites, and Callie's going to go through those for us.
So these are going to be just kind of typical examples that a brownfield isn't always necessarily some glaringly obvious nuclear meltdown site or anything like that. So this picture up on the screen is actually of a former school in Aiken, South Carolina. It was constructed in the 1950s and continued use as a school up until the 1990s, until the school district was utilizing it just kind of as a maintenance hub or just any type of storage. Let me back up. So the city of Aiken actually was looking to purchase this property because they were wanting to expand a park that was located next door. After we did assessment, that picture is kind of cut off, but we identified 9 underground storage tanks because the facility previously operated off of heating oil to heat the building. So we were able to assess and then pull those out. On top of the fact that this building, the panels had asbestos in them, and then there was a pesticide storage concern as well. So that is after Aiken ended up purchasing it, and what they did was they constructed that facility to the right. They ended up making it just a community center adjacent to the park. So this one, I guess the corny joke here is that it's not a brownfield, it's a greenfield. This is located in the neck of Charleston, that kind of area. It used to be a metal recycling facility, and we ended up doing assessment on it. And obviously there were some heavy metal concerns and PCBs. And then one day they were proceeding with clearing and grading the site, and the contractor called. And that picture is cut off also, but they called and they said, why are the rocks on fire? So I guess after they started clearing and grading the site, you know how summers are in South Carolina, especially in Charleston, it was just taking direct hit from the sun, and what ended up happening here is the residual metals and metal oxides created essentially accidental thermite. So that's not really a rock, it's just a collection of metals that would kind of self-ignite once it got too hot out there. So we were able to move forward with that property, and currently I think there are multifamily apartments on top of that. So this property is obviously a playground. It's been a playground since the 1920s. Prior to that, in the late 1800s, there was a superphosphate fertilizer plant next door. And what they were doing, I believe, was just dumping extra fertilizer on the property. And once we went out there for assessment, that's the auger of the drill rig. So once we started drilling down into the soil, you can see that soil is turning a purple color. And occasionally, if you have the right mix of metals and the perfect conditions, lead and arsenic contamination will turn the soil that purple color. This is a good example, though, of every brownfield site does not necessarily need a huge cleanup or remediation plan that's super intensive. So in this scenario, for example, the contamination was probably about 4 feet below the ground surface, and metals are only really a concern if you come into direct physical contact with them or if you ingest it. So in that scenario, what we were able to do is come up with a plan for the property owner to do what's called a cap, and that can either be just paving over it or just putting about 2 feet of clean soil on the surface to cover that up. So that's just a good example that not every single site needs a very intensive kind of investigation. It can be as simple as, remediation. It can be as simple as putting a deed restriction on these properties, like no wells within the area, or like I said, just adding a soil cap or something to that effect. So with identifying sites within Liberty, what we kind of do, and we'll go into that in further slides also, but how I came up with a list was I was provided historical information. So there are old Sanborn fire insurance maps that firefighters used to use back in the day. It was very intensive. They had every single former old property literally spelled out, former dry cleaner, former gas station, that kind of thing. So I looked at those, and then we had a steering committee meeting where I provided them with a list of criteria that they were able to rank and provide back to me. And once I did the weighted average, I kind of focused our list of sites based off of the community members' priorities, if that makes sense. So that's how we were able to rank sites and come up with our list of sites that are available for assessment.
And then we're going to go to the next slide, but just to continue that conversation, we do have a list of priority sites that we went through and decided that they have a high likely presence of contamination. But any site that fits the criteria of a commercial or industrial building is eligible to use this funding through the grant. So what it provides is called due diligence. So the best way to think about due diligence is when you purchase a home, you want to do a study in the home. You want to make sure the HVAC is in good working order, there's no leaks in the roof, there may be radon concerns in South Carolina, so you want to do a radon study, you want to look for mold. You want to make sure that you are not inheriting someone else's liabilities when you purchase that home. You can think of due diligence the same way. So if you ever took a loan out of a bank to buy a commercial or industrial facility, they would force you to do a period of due diligence, which would include a phase 1 and a phase 2 environmental site assessment. Those just kind of help identify your risk, compliant with lender investor expectations if you're going to redevelop or have a loan, and it quantifies feasibility. With this due diligence that the grant can provide for phase 1 or phase 2, you also have some negotiation power. You know, if you purchase a site that's $100,000, but it's going to take $30,000 to $40,000 to remediate, you ask for a reduction in price. You know, or you can write something into your contract that saves you from inheriting their liability. Any type of transaction, commercial, industrial, multifamily, usually goes through this process unless you're purchasing with cash. You can bypass it, but you should still protect yourself. Just like you wouldn't purchase a home without doing some type of inspection or at least walking through. Sometimes my dad walked through with me. You know, I don't know if that qualifies as an inspection, but my dad's pretty on top of things. But you want that second look. You want that second opinion. And those can range in price. A phase 1 is usually about $3,000 or $4,000. A phase 2 can be anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000. And it really can be a hindrance for somebody to purchase a property or trying to sell a property. So this grant really allows you to take this free money, and nothing's ever free, but this free money from the EPA. There's no strings attached. You can't be punished for it. If we find something, it's not like the state's going to come in and take your building away. It is just giving you some power by knowledge to go out into the marketplace and either buy or sell a property, to revitalize the community, anything of that nature. The key takeaway is liability protection, risk management, fulfills lender investor requirements, and ensures project feasibility. So as mentioned, the due diligence period is talking about ESA. So ESA stands for Environmental Site Assessment. The grant provides funding to do these. So a phase 1 ESA is what Callie was talking about. We're looking at older records. We are seeing if there was a dry cleaner there at one time. We're doing site interviews. We will FOIA request freedom of information to the state and to the federal government to see if they have any knowledge of any prior environmental contamination on site. If there is a problem that's found during the phase 1 ESA, it's called a REC, Recognized Environmental Concern, then we go to a phase 2. A phase 2 ESA is taking actual samples. So you're taking soil, groundwater, soil vapor. During this time, you can also take samples for asbestos, lead-based paint. You can also do a wetland delineation. If it's a large property with wetlands or stream, that may be a hindrance to future redevelopment. So these funds from this grant will also pay for you to do any of those services. So that's all the due diligence stuff. Unfortunately, this grant does not provide funding to clean up a site, but what it can do is you can have analysis of brownfield cleanup alternatives, site reuse assessment plans, revitalization plans, evaluation of market viability. So we did a phase 2, we found contamination. What do you do now? It's not the end of the road just because we can't clean it up. We can still do all of those things. We can help put together a plan or cost to help remediate. Most remediation plans consist of what Kelly was talking about, which is just a cap. You're just preventing human exposure pathways. You just don't want a small child eating the dirt. You don't want to grow vegetables. You don't want to use this water to grow food. It's not some big, $1 million remediation project. Most of the time, it's just prevent people from coming in contact with it. So you can use the money from the grant to figure out what the next steps are for your property, just to take away the fear and make sure that you understand and the potential buyer or the lender or whoever it is understands that there is a path forward for this site. It's not just unusable space. So again, this is just some benefits of the Brownfield program. It can facilitate job growth, increase local tax base, builds on existing infrastructure, promotes partnerships, improves and protects the environment, strengthens the marketplace, promotes sustainable redevelopment, and fulfills the needs of the community. This grant is given from the EPA to the City of Liberty to revitalize this community and make it the best it can be, and take these spaces that may look scary and you don't want to do anything with them and take away that fear. So participation in this program is 100% voluntary. If you have a property or you know someone that has a property, if you know the owner of the mills, you would like to talk to them about this, it's a great opportunity just to remove that fear from the property. If you have a property that's currently for sale and you're trying to sell it, a buyer will potentially go through this due diligence period. So if you can do this already on the front end of things before you go to sell, it really does save the person's time and money, and they'd be more interested in purchasing that property from you. Here is mine and Hallie's contact information. We are available whenever you need us. You can send us an email. You can call us. We are here for any questions. If anyone has any questions now while we are here, you can feel free to speak up. If not, feel free to take down my information off this slide and give us a call or email at any time. Katie is also our conduit to you guys, so you can also reach out to her if you have any questions, and she can relay them to us as well.
Are you able to catch us up on the projects that you've already done so far inside the city?
Of course. So current projects that we are underway that are 113 Front Street, which is just adjacent to the current City Hall. We did a phase 1 there. We identified an underground storage tank and some potential for some other environmental concerns. We will be doing a phase 2 ACM lead-based paint survey on that property. It is with the state for review, so we're hoping that we can get that one underway here in the next month or so. 28 West Front Street, we are under a phase 1 for that property owner as well. Once the phase 1 is finalized, we'll determine if there's any phase 2 recommendations, but at the very least, that building will receive a asbestos lead-based paint survey. That survey is good for 3 years, so even if you don't plan on remediating or doing anything with that building today, that survey is good for a long time. And is 100% free to the property owner. We are also doing ACM lead-based paint on the former City Hall. We just completed one in this building, and we are also doing a ACM lead-based paint on the water treatment facility. So there is movement. We are, getting some sites in, but we have plenty of budget left to do much more in this community. So if you know anybody, if you are driving by and you're like, this has been an eyesore for I don't know how long, or this place would be great for a park, reach out. We can try and find the property owner. The best way to get this information out there is the community. Talk about it, call us, we would answer any questions. But thank
out too if you want to. We're probably going to go a bit, so if you want to see Sean out, you're more than welcome. We won't be hurt. All right, we will go ahead and move on to the approval of minutes. April 13th, regular session. Do I have a motion? Councilman Matthew. And the second? Councilman Hanley. Any discussion on the regular session? All in favor? All right, next up is the approval of minutes from the May 5th work session. Do I have a motion? Discussion on those.
This work session, the organization of the notes probably needs to be reviewed. Because on the first section of the forensic audit, we have discussion about the excavator as an item under the forensic audit. And under the forensic audit, we have the bar grant, and then we have the transfer discussion involving brownfields. Those probably weren't, they were part of the budget discussion, but probably not the forensic audit portion.
Okay, we can move those around.
And there's others that are so, like the legal review for codification of offenses is not part of the financial year budget. So, that just the format needs to be fixed because it's not correct. In my opinion, it doesn't appear to be correct. So, just the format needs to be fixed. I thought it was what I printed, but I just took what you printed. It's just same for hospitality, 150th realization. They could have been under that, but I don't heard that.
Yeah, the hospitality one fit under that section, that's New Year's Eve and sponsorship. That section is good.
It was a separate discussion.
It all falls under the budget.
So I just
Are we good to approve with amendments just to reorganize it? Or do you want it to come back next month with the changes before approval? I mean, it's technically all in there, it's just ordered a little different. It's up to y'all. How do you feel about approving it? Since it's all in there, it's just ordered a little different.
What's the downside to postponing it?
You want to postpone?
I don't care. I'm just saying, I don't see it. It's not like a penalty that council will be right till next week.
Right, yeah. We good to table this until next, and we'll just reorder it and... All in favor of tabling until next session? Okay.
So, we don't have to have a motion to table second.
You do technically need a second. I think the mayor kind of made the motion.
Right.
And you just need a motion on the minutes. I mean, you just need a second on the motion.
A second on the motion to table?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second on the motion to table?
And then everybody voted.
And now, all in favor? Okay. All right, on to new We are at the first reading of the 26-27 fiscal year operating budget. We did host the public hearing here just a couple minutes ago. We actually didn't have anybody show up for the public hearing, but that's okay. We have made an attempt to get this as publicized as possible, releasing a copy of the public-facing version of the operating budget for the next year on May 1st, to give everyone a chance to look through it, bring any questions that they had either to the administration or to your council member. I haven't really heard a whole lot from constituents, so we will go ahead and open this up. Do I have a motion to open up discussion on the first reading? Okay. And a second?
Second.
And any discussion? Oh, and before we get into discussion, just so that we make the best use of our time as we go through the agenda items, we have introduced a timer. This is not to pinpoint anyone or to be extreme in any way. It is simply meant to allow the meeting to move along and that each council member has a chance to go ahead and discuss the items in the budget. If there is anything outside of those 10 minutes, which is part of Robert's rules, which is what our ordinances are built around, we will ask that you send that into the administration so that we can go ahead and answer it completely. So, any discussion? And you all should have a little cheat sheet for the version 7 budget. We went through all of the questions that we had received from council following the work session, and these have all been updated. This should be about the best description that we could possibly put together on the budget. And we also do have Green Finney here as well. They do our accounting. They have been working on the budget along with us to answer any sort of questions around formulas and details and all that stuff.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this reading, first reading, until we can have another budget work session to go through this. We've received the newest budget line item on Thursday. We just received 2 pages of clarification. I've sent in multiple pages of questions that you say that were addressed, but we just got this tonight. I think that to go ahead and the ordinance itself has already the millage rates inside here. So trying to figure out where we are with the millage rates versus, where that calculation exactly came from. I'd like to have a motion that we delay this until we can have another budget work session to be able to discuss the current budget.
So do I call for a vote on that?
You call for second.
Do I have a second to have another budget retreat to discuss the budget?
And then I think there would be general discussion on the motion.
Okay. So I guess we are in general discussion on the budget retreat. A second budget retreat.
Can I ask what your concern is in the legislature?
No. We will go through the knowledge change to make sure that we understand where that comes from. But also, like I said, here's 2 pages of clarification we didn't have before. So to be able to review these things, it would be good to be able to review this and ask questions. There's probably still more questions when, there's just one payroll adjustment where it says that it went up $882. Well, okay, so what's the $882? Where did it come from? Why? So there were additional people that were added to the new version 7. So you can And sometimes those line items are just some adjustments, but we don't have that information about the adjustments. They do because they're working on that number, and I get that.
Right.
But we don't understand. It's hard for us to understand exactly what that what's behind it. And all of a sudden we see a number, and now we see additional things.
Are you able to help with this question?
Sorry?
Are you able to help with this question?
Yes, I guess the question, correct me if I'm wrong, what bill we're asking for? Or
That is this part of it, right? There's plenty of pages here, documentation has now changed to the 7. Trying to understand what those 7 changes are. Not necessarily 7. We had 6, we went to 7, we said that's fine. And now we put in 7, we still don't have all the data inside that to understand. To make a good decision, we're trying to make the best decision for everybody's money. And then we did a 2-page clarification thing on certain things. And we get ready to get into the fund balance by a pretty substantial amount of money.
so the fund balance dip is mainly from the returning of $60,000 millage and the purchase of the excavator. That's majority. And it could be
$50,000.
$50,000.
So that's my point. I just want to add, because this page, it says, pull from fund balance, forensic audit, and mini backward to the public works. It doesn't say anything about this, or the amount of money to bring back.
We had already
It also
discussed that in forensic retreat.
We talked about, all kinds of things. But what I'm trying to say is, let's get it all up.
Let's get it all up, right.
I made a motion, and your little timers continuing to go, so we'll just let you guys do that part. I think you need a budget retreat. I think there's enough line items on here to have questions. I got a new monthly audit for Infinity. Doesn't look anything like the one I had last month that I had questions on that had $300,000 mistake in it.
It was
And
a
now,
formula error.
I found it. No one found it. So there's $300,000 that was in there. So now when I go to try and compare apples to apples, I can't. Because the report I got this month's packet is not the same. So every time I get another packet to get more information, it's different. In my opinion, we're just doing this, and I can't see what's underneath that.
Okay.
And that's what I'm asking.
And that's what the version 7 budget cheat sheet was for, was to help explain all of those things.
And to do that in the middle or right before the meeting, I think it's irresponsible for us.
We just got your questions.
You had questions in the beginning of the meeting.
I believe these were from this morning, correct? Or yesterday? Some of them. Yeah. So we were still working on clarification for some of the questions. The other ones you had received last week.
I'm still waiting for the details that were underneath that property tax. I asked to go for the property tax line by line. I asked you for the detailed information. The first time you didn't give it to me. The second time you gave me a different answer. The third time you went to Green Penny and gave me a 3-item questionnaire that you asked them for. Details.
How many details are you looking for?
What's under that property tax line that we
Can you help me with my question?
mistake?
You talk about just straight property tax.
And how do I compare that to the new report I got? And I can't compare the two. Because now I get a Q3 report instead of what did we do from last month to this month? Where am I at? Because last month's numbers were wrong. So I can't even compare those. And that's what I have. I literally asked a very simple question. What's the information underneath that property tax line? I asked it 3 different times, and today I still don't have it. That's not difficult. And it's not operational information.
You asked a lot of questions in the last week. And
It's a darn good thing I
I
did,
know.
because nobody
I'm
else
saying,
is getting into this
excuse
stuff.
me, to be We have answered every other one of your questions. There are sometimes questions that take a little bit of time to work on.
I say that that's not necessarily true, but okay.
I have a suggestion.
I'm good with that.
Thank you.
If you will, just for a minute. I'm sort of hearing two questions. I would remind council, you're on your main item here. You really only have one scheduled meeting before you have to have a budget.
Correct.
So I guess the two questions to me are, do you want to delay your vote on the budget for first reading? It's really, I won't say it's a meeting thing, it's required by law. And then schedule a workshop so that you can actually, if you all can reach an agreement on understanding anything and getting the answers that you want, then you could actually have your second reading in June and pass the budget without having to schedule another meeting. So in other words, instead of having 4 meetings tonight, the workshop, the first reading, the second reading, you could do the first reading tonight, and if it passes, then go on, set your budget workshop, maybe you consult with the family and see if they can come to that workshop. Because I don't know what your schedule will be like. And then you would cut that 4 meetings down to 3.
Okay.
Now, that is also pure laziness on my part, so if that's not what you want to do, please ignore it, and I will attend all the meetings.
So we could do a first reading tonight and then hold a second, or so it would be first reading with amendment?
Well, I was thinking just the first reading on what's presented, and then have your workshop in between the 2 council meetings. And then, if you amend your budget, you would do that as your second reading, which is typically, that's not unusual for second reading to have amended provisions in any ordinance. So there's no illegal or anything about that.
Right.
So,
Understood.
and you have your budget, you have your public hearing tonight.
We did.
So you could advertise that second reading thoroughly on your website and Facebook page, just to make sure the public's aware. So that would be my suggestion. But,
So if we approved the first reading, if we did the first reading tonight and everybody passed it, we would not have to do a second public hearing, would we? Or would we?
not unless you wanted to.
Okay.
And you could do that the same night of the second reading. And you might make that decision at your instructors have to do that. Set the public hearing. It would depend on how quickly you do your workshop, because you have that 16 days calendar notice before the public hearing. So if you wanted
So a workshop is that like a work session?
It would basically be like our budget retreat was at the airport, and that's kind of,
Okay.
really fun.
I mean, we were there.
The accountant's smiling. He knows it's fun for him. Anyway, just a suggestion.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to that, but
A second budget retreat,
yeah,
or to approving the first reading for tonight.
a second budget retreat. I mean,
I just want to make sure that we have clear what we're going to gain from a second budget hearing versus just having council members that have questions come into the office and sit with us, which we would be completely open to doing, and work through those questions. That is also something that we could do. If you could make some time in your schedule, we would be happy to sit down with you and go line by line with that with us.
it would help me. I mean, I'm not a budget person. I mean, y'all probably think I don't need to be doing this. However, y'all see it clearly. I don't. And so I want to be sure I see it clearly before I vote for something, that's going to affect the city for a whole year. So I want to make sure I understand everything. So whatever means it takes, I'm willing to do.
So for me, the budget retreat would be the opportunity for everybody to get the same information at the same time. For example, why do we need post books and subs in the said in the work session, we're going to eliminate that. So that's the thing. So there's an answer. I'm sure there's a really good answer. That's not the question. Is there a good answer? If there is, then let's just put it out so everybody hears it. Because I don't think everybody hears it.
Thought we covered contract dues and fees in the work session.
Dues and fees are things that you, publications that you pay for. So you put something out in the newspaper that goes along and that's what you have subscription to your hair software. That's the biggest piece of that, not the expense. Dues, so like you have employees that have to pay membership fees in order to maintain some certification. That's revenue. If you have, if one of the police officers needs to do their certification, the city will pay for it. And that's what that will happen to. It's one of those that is not worth slicing out individually because everything's either small amounts or there's very few items. So you basically create a general ledger item for one transaction here. Which makes sense.
And we did cover it in the work session.
We did cover it. We said we were going to get rid of it.
We talked
So
about
the conversation
reducing it. We talked about reducing it. We got rid of miscellaneous is what we got rid of.
We did not reduce the amount.
Pub sub dues and fees,
Individually,
overall it went down because we've gone through every single publication, subscription, everything and reduced our overall usage.
one item out of a lot of different items on there. If they had questions, it'd be really good to be able to explain it to everybody at the same time. That would be good information.
For the work session, we did. I don't want to repeat items.
The work session was John Humphrey going through 5 pages of questions I had because of the fact that was 5 pages of questions I had. Now, was that the right? I mean, is that it? Now we made changes. We're on version 7, but that doesn't mean that version 7 doesn't have additional questions to it. And maybe even more questions now that maybe something got changed, that there's a question. I still have this question about rounding there, or rounding of payroll amounts in the budgeted items. That seems very odd.
So the reason it's rounded is because the budget that you're at.
Tell me what's our revenue?
Your revenue this year is only
No. What's the revenue on the thing? Does it say 3,100,000? And how much change? My point is, if you have change in the revenue, why wouldn't you have it in the expenses? What's the difference? You don't round just because it's payroll.
Well, so a lot of
Everything else has a whole bunch of individual numbers.
Yeah, a lot of the 110 that's in place is coming from that use of fund balance as far as revenue is concerned. On the expense side, we know what that expense is to pay with equipment, but a lot of times we don't. So that's why we don't always.
A lot of times we don't. This is salaries, and it's a percentage increase. We know exactly what it is. And I believe our friends north of us is getting ready to have a conversation about watching the fund balance go to zero. And so I want to make sure that we're very conscious of what we do with fund balance. So to do that, I have questions about the line items, and I think that it would be good information for people to be able to have.
I will say, fund balance the city of Liberty has is substantial. It's a very good fund balance. You're in a very good fund balance.
So did our people in the north.
But the difference is, the use of fund balance here, these are all one-time, one annual expenses. So if you take that away, one-time expense, you're not going to hit your fund balance. And even if your budget goes to zero, you have to use the fund balance to zero. It still doesn't mean in the year you're not going to use it. It also doesn't mean you're not going to increase it. You have to take it out. The budget is the time when you invest. That's information that you have access to. There are certain things that you just can't estimate for because
no one's budget for health insurance back. But if you do the best you can with the information package. So, I mean, if your budget gets to where the expenses at the end of the year matches the budget that you created, you spend too much time on the budget. The budget is that's the information you have at the time. And to get to the granular detail of sense is not necessary. If you have the information, by all means use it, but if you don't, it's not necessary.
So we have really two options here. I'm hearing some members of council that would like to have a second budget retreat. I have not heard from this side of the room yet. How are you all feeling about a second budget retreat?
I don't think a second budget retreat is necessary. I believe if it's something that they need some one-on-one time with, I think that's perfectly okay. But as far as me, I move to pass as written. That's all I have to say.
I'm also comfortable with the information I've been given. I would say if it makes other people on the council feel more comfortable, I would be willing to attend any budget retreat and put in any amount of time to make sure we're all on the same page. I also think that could become possibly one-on-one as well. So, I'm not sure it's my decision to make, but I would attend the budget retreat. I'm not sure if it's necessary. It's one-on-one consultants.
So do you all want a one-on-one or a second budget retreat?
You may want to call the question on John's motion first, and then if there's an alternative, if that doesn't pass,
Okay.
then you'll have to see.
So call for a motion on a second budget retreat.
Call for the vote on his motion, which was sent by Ms. Whitman.
Okay. So I'm going to call for a vote on a second budget session. All in favor of a second budget retreat?
And then you want to call for it.
So that's second budget retreat and to postpone this
Budget retreat.
now back to.
Well, you need to call for it against as well,
So all against,
since it wasn't unanimous.
right. So all against a second budget retreat.
All right, so motion passed. So you would go either to the original motion, which was for the first reading to be accepted, or you can call and see if anybody else has a different motion that they want to make.
Okay. So call for the vote on the budget for the first reading.
I would be first asked if there was any further discussion on that original motion, and that would give the opportunity for anybody that wanted to make a motion to amend in some way.
Okay. Any further discussion on that item?
I was wondering, for a budget retreat, I mean, what would be gained by having everyone together in the same room, that people feel comfortable with what's being presented, versus one-on-one? I'm not sure if you're able to that.
Well, first we have two members that are asked on this information, and that are not able to provide their thoughts and their words on that, and ask questions if they had something else based on what the conversation was, because that's what I think that these meetings and doing things in this group is best at, is to be able to work off of each other's thoughts, because it's not just one person's thing or one person's way of running a city. It's how we collectively work together and come up with the best solutions for the city. So I think that having those people included in that would also be able to hear those kinds of comments, I think would be helpful. And I think that we're going to probably see that we might want to make adjustments in work session on certain individual line items. It's possible.
I will note that Councilman Wilson, prior to his vacation, came by the office. He is one of the members that's not here tonight, and actually posed a couple of quick questions, which we were able well. He said, other than that, I'm good. He said, I'm going to have a great vacation, and went off. So, if that helps with this conversation at all.
I believe we'll have one more work session as well, one more reading before we would. Is there any downside to waiting until we would have our other two members and they could also decide if they felt like we needed them in budget retreat? Because I think we do have some more time before we make a final decision.
We do have.
Still this year there is, but if they feel like they need to also have to take the time to discuss things with the group.
So are you suggesting the next work session for the next council meeting to put that in the work session agenda? Is that what you're proposing? Well, one more question. If I have my questions, and I know I was in City Hall and Katie suggested to come and speak one-on-one, which I didn't really have time to do, but if we talk to someone one-on-one, who are we going to talk to? You or?
It would typically be the both of us. We would meet. And we can even involve Green Committee as we need to. We've had multiple conversations with them, virtual conversations, to help answer quite a few of the questions that John had posed. So we're welcome to, if you're willing to do that too, if you want to bring them in.
I still feel better having another discussion with everybody involved before the second reading, before we make that final decision, and we have still lots of questions. I mean,
Is there any way we could work that into a work session instead of a special
I
vote?
think that's what Mikhail was proposing, yeah. I mean,
Might be hard to do with 10-minute time limits. If the time limits actually
would that be in play?
are they in play actually in the work session?
All meetings,
But it's
council could make a motion to extend the work session or the limit for any meeting. But
I would like to have a discussion again before, and about whatever it is, you call it budget retreat or work session, get together, whatever.
We can make the June work session just budget.
Just budget.
We could do that.
How does everybody else feel about that?
And it would be helpful prior to that session if everybody, you have any lingering questions.
Well, if I have any prior to that, I'll come sit in.
Okay. Because that should help.
I'm not ready to make that final decision now.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
If we pass the first reading, then if we have issues during the work session, we can still extend the second reading and approval. Is that correct? Or do we have to make, I mean, like if we still can't come to an agreement about everything after all that, or some of us are still holding out.
during that meeting on the second reading, I mean, there's like 500 things in the budget. We put 10 things in the budget, we don't even take individual votes on those 10 things. And it's up to the budget. Now, that's difficult because it can affect your total line, because you have to have a balanced budget. But hopefully you'll be able to narrow the issues more via that work session.
So between tonight and that work session, if we can get any last questions so that we can go ahead and get those answers for you, that would be very helpful. This is your letter.
And being that John, we just got this tonight, get it
That'll give you time
a
to
lot
review.
earlier so we can look over it.
Yep, that'll give you time to review before the work session.
Okay. I agree with that.
Okay. So I think if there's no further discussion, good? Okay. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to call for a vote on the first reading with the understanding that the next work session will be strictly budget.
You need an amendment if you're going to make that as part of the original.
Want to make that a condition. But I think the mayor's indicated that that's what she's going to put on the agenda.
That's what
So I don't really
So I don't think it needs to be.
That's not what this says.
Yeah. So if you just want to make a clear motion just on the first reading.
Just
Okay. So for the first reading, it needs to be that we're going to approve the, wait, what?
First reading of the budget was presented by the mayor tonight.
And then I just call for a vote with that amendment that states that the next work session.
No interest.
Okay.
You set the budget, you set the budget. You do that too. But you set the agenda for the work session.
Correct.
If there's any objection from the council member, they can let you know once you distribute that. And that'd be a pretty easy agenda to do.
Okay. So I just call for a vote? Okay. All in favor of the first reading of the 26-27 fiscal year operating budget? Okay.
And then against.
All against? Okay. And Rhonda, are you abstaining? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed your name.
Just as a note, and this is very from city to city, abstentions are not allowed on your ordinances. But if you have a conflict, you can recuse yourself.
Thank you. All right. Next up for new business is the 25-26 zoning ordinance, and it is a hefty document. It has been, this is exactly the same zoning ordinance that we reviewed in our work session in February. There were some adjustments made to it. Jennifer, the is here. Can you kind of come up and walk us through the adjustments that were made for this version?
Sorry about all of this. We interrupt. Not too much changed since the work session. We did have a public hearing, and we had a few comments that we didn't have. One of them was in neighborhood commercial, since you can't have residential there. They were concerned about if you may have the apartments or the ADUs, accessory to a dwelling unit, and we did change that. It is a single family residential in a neighborhood commercial. You can't have that. They had some concerns about that. They had concerns about, there was a rumor or something about we were not going to allow sheds for businesses, and we never took that out. Shed, if you have a home occupation, you can't have a shed. That was the only two major changes, or topics that came up during the public hearing. But everything we talked about in work session, nothing really else changed.
Thank you. All right. Do I have a motion on the zoning ordinance? In the second? Any discussion?
Did Jennifer don't wrong?
Who are
Don't
trying to get out of here?
Oh, no, you have questions about
Did you guys address livestock for sale?
No, you did not, because that was going to be a separate outside list that we should get later once the conversation.
But the for sale portion is not part of the zoning?
That's part of the code.
Okay.
For sale is the city code, not the zoning.
Perfect.
Anything else?
The way this gets back here.
I know, right? All right, any other discussion? All right, I guess I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Okay. And Jennifer, thank you so much for all your work on this. I know you and Planning and Zoning have really worked tirelessly special event ordinance. This is an ordinance created for limited time special events. This is our second reading. Do I have a motion on that ordinance?
I'll make a motion.
And a second? Any discussion?
Are the rates part of this ordinance?
The rates, that's a separate thing you had asked for, you include in the budget, and that's a separate document. It just looks like because it's in the packet. The last page would be the page after page 5. That's the rates, and that's to go into your rates, your other rates for your budget, to go into the budget. That was in,
Is that in the actual packet underneath the budget?
That was that stuff that was in the grant, wasn't that something
Yeah.
right?
Is it that?
It's not, it can be attached with us to create that. It's just, you don't want that before you can ask for second reading on that ordinance. So that's probably why it's not attached.
When we were going over the rates, I believe we added something about rates are dependent on the fiscal year operating budget with the intention of amending it whenever the second reading was passed. So I believe, and we might have taken it out because we decided that we were going to amend it once the second reading was passed, because we were under the impression that this was going to get passed today. We were going to add it later and just amend it with the second reading of the budget.
So it would be amended then after the second reading.
But we're not actually approving those rates tonight.
They are included in the ordinance as well.
Yes, those rates are part of the operating budget itself.
But I thought the whole intention of pulling it out was not to have it in part of the actual ordinance. That was conversation back in the break.
What I did was to give you a little additional flexibility was on page 1 under 2. I said that the fee set in this ordinance may be amended by council from time to time via ordinance, and also may be set or amended and attached as an addendum to the fiscal year budget. And if no amendment is included in a particular budget, the existing fees shall remain in place until such time as council acts to amend the fees. I want you to be able to amend mid-year without having to go through your amending your budget, because if you have to amend the budget, you have to have a public hearing, you have to do meetings. So this gives you a little flexibility. You can either do it in your budget, because it's not a guaranteed thing. It's not like I don't think because they're special short-term events, you're not going to be able to count on them for year to year as a reliable stream of revenue in terms of being able to estimate. But you may want to change the rates during the year for whatever reason you can do either. You have the power to do either.
I think that was the whole idea, is that if we wanted to change the rates today, we'll actually have to go back and have them changed to the ordinance, which is a whole new ordinance.
Okay.
2 more readings.
You could do that, or you could do it annually in your budget. You can do it either way. That's the way I do it. So you have a little flexibility. Because, I don't know how popular this particular thing is going to be. It may be something where you realize you need to raise the rates because you're spending so much staff time on it.
Sure.
Or police time or whatever, So I didn't want to limit you to doing it annually when you did your budget.
I got you. On the flip side, I don't want to have an ordinance change just because it's still sitting in there in the ordinance. You would have to change the ordinance if you change the values of this
codified ordinance, the rate part, that would stay in the ordinance until you change it. And you have to change it by ordinance anyway.
Right.
So,
But if you should we go back to that conversation, because I thought the whole idea of making this sheet here to go into the budget was so that we wouldn't have it here.
And that's what you're saying, right, is that you're giving both options to be able to change throughout the year. If you do it only in the budget, it has to be a public hearing and 2 readings to change it, correct?
that will be in the larger scheme of your budget.
Right.
If you do it by ordinance, you only need 2 readings.
2 readings, no
To
public
change the
hearing.
rates anyway, to set the rates, you're going to need an ordinance.
So if we change the rates, we still have to change both.
No, you can do it either way.
That just doesn't seem kosher.
I mean, anytime you change rates, you're changing your underlying ordinance. For example, your water rates, you have a water ordinance, and you're changing the rates that are subject to that ordinance. So you're changing that ordinance every time you change rates.
But the rate's not in the ordinance, it's in a...
It's in the budget ordinance. That's right.
It's in the budget ordinance.
That's right.
Right.
Right now, you don't have rates for this. So
That's right.
since you're creating a new scheme, you need to have the rates in the ordinance, the first go around. And then after that, you can change it. And, what would happen would be that, let's say you change, the cost for the vendors, based on the number of vendors. Well, if you change that, Sierra's going to send it into the congregation people. I was trying to communicate it, and they will change that in the text. And it's electronic, so it doesn't take them 5 minutes to change it. But you'll have the added. I mean, if you want to do it every year in the budget, that's fine. But either way, you're going to have to do it by ordinance. I mean, every time you change an ordinance, she or whoever the clerk is communicates that to the code, and then they change it online.
With giving us an option, we're just not having to do the public hearing, it's only in the budget. I like having an option.
I just don't know, this is the first go around for y'all, and I don't know how often you may need to change it. I'm like everybody else. I like to create an ordinance and have it stay the way it is forever. But one thing I know in my head, even though that's how I feel, I finish that ordinance, put it aside, it'll be lawful forever, is that all laws and all ordinances should be constantly changing to adapt to changing conditions. So there may be other parts of the ordinance that y'all want to change as well.
So if you change it, where we change it by ordinance, it is built into the budget.
And yes, well,
If it's currently in our budget, these rates is completely new. It's completely new, so it's not in the budget currently. Right, and I think that's what Ms. Heinsmore was trying to explain about how we were going to build it in.
So in the budget, the rates, we have a section for event and booth participation. And there's a little disclaimer at the bottom that just basically says, event booth rental / participation fees may vary depending on the type of event, location, and specific needs associated with the reservation. The final fee will be determined by the city administrator or their designee, and we just left that open for interpretation. So once this does get passed, like Mary was saying, if council is okay with the rates, then if we would have passed the budget before this was passed, if we would have passed this before the budget was passed, we could add it, but if we passed the budget before special event ordinance is passed, then we can amend the budget. So it's just in both places. Because my understanding, and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, we can't charge the citizens anything unless it's in our rate tables.
I don't know about rate tables, but you can't charge it till you pass the ordinance.
Yeah. And the budget is approved.
So under what tab did you
February on that, also on the, is it on the spreadsheet? Oh, it's not on the spreadsheet.
No, it's on page 22 of the council packet.
Oh, okay.
The last page was the zoning ordinance. And again, those are the only rates about event fees right now. But since we're bringing it to the work session, that's being addressed out here.
Because you don't know how successful or when it's going to change. I think the options are better route.
Okay, are we all set on discussion? You ready to vote? Okay. All in favor of the second reading of the special event ordinance? All right, moving on to the city financial report. That is in your packet. Before we let Green City go, if he wants to. Does anyone on council have any questions for him since he is here?
When's the money for the fund transfer for the loan we had in the utility fund going to be transferred?
So, money doesn't actually physically transfer, it's just a cash transaction. Normally, we report that as of the end of the year, January. When you get to the audit, we basically say, okay, how did the water service line do this year? Transfer. We can really live on the top, so I can collect it in this month.
And amount of transfer this year is
I think it's going to be around 70,000.
70.
You have about 240,000 remaining. So 72,000 remaining this year. Last year was roughly 80,000.
And in the new budget, where in the new budget we have $60,000. Because math said 60 times 3. You just said 72 times 3.
We have 204,000. Give or take. It's not a big thing.
That's 60 times
I think that maybe a few years ago, it's
3. It was 92, I thought.
It's varied over the last few years. Yeah.
What other transfers will happen until the end of the fiscal year?
That's the big one. That's the big one. Obviously, as the fiscal year closes, we're going to start filling out the curve. So we're going to go through and see, okay, what other liabilities are out there that I can pay to make those split out our 12 years. It's not a big money. And then the
So that 72 is inside the utility fund revenue for the budget for the rest of the year. So it's part of the 475,000.
I'll do it before we let go. Just want to make sure that.
End of for the next meeting, we have this version with the data behind it, because we should make sure we remember that that's 72,000, and there might be some other things. Just make sure that we are keeping those in mind when we're doing our total budget for this next year. So we have those things, make sure we have them all, and comparing it to what we're actually spending this year. Last question. Why do you do budgets based on last year's budget? Why don't you do budgets versus actual?
Well, we did take a little bit of the actual into consideration. So we start with last year. We look at what we did this year. So when we started doing this budget, we looked through January. So setting with that, why is that 7 and what we have is 5. A lot of times, what you find is there are certain items that belong to the year. For example, in June, we get your UNC money, it doesn't license. That's it for once a year. So we took that and then divided by 7 months of the year, and that shows the year. So I do kind of a combination. I actually budget this year's actuals, trying to see, okay, what's the percent increase over last year that we anticipated was accurate. And then we kind of say, okay, looking at it now, what inflation really kind of say, okay, it's around 5%, so we said 5% increase probably. That being said, is everything going to increase 5%? No. Is everything going to the gap loans 25% last 6 months, 5 months? So the question is it going to stay that way? Because if it is going to stay that way, then the budget for fuel is probably wrong. It's going to reduce what? More than likely, based off history, it's not. It's going to stay that way for 2 months. Because it's going to win the election, the price will fall, and we'll be back to where we were in December.
So our fuel costs, for example, because that's a good one to bring up, right? Fuel cost does have some fluctuality to it, but if you use a budget versus the actual, you think that the actual for the 8 or 9 months should be the average over that period of time, and we could use that to budget for the next fiscal year, or do we go back to the budgeted amount?
Yes and no. There's a lot of different variables going because the fuel that was used for the first, let's say, 6 months out of the year, you can double it, that might be a good estimate for this year's budget. Well, if for some reason everyone decided to leave, and you had 3 police officers patrol the street, your fuel is going to be a lot more than this year. So, we got to look at a little bit more than just what happens. Do you plan on increasing staff, between public works, police, water, sewer? If so, more than likely means that you're going to buy another capital asset through a tractor, truck, full of tractor. So all of that's going to eat into your fuel costs as well. So it's a little bit more than just actuals flat out yearly and move on.
There's one-time things that you have to increase, you got to add to it.
Yeah. And then, for example, in June,
department head reports. Katie Sizemore, Deputy Administrator. I've implemented monthly group meetings with department heads, individual meetings with department heads alongside the mayor, as well as monthly staff meetings at City Hall. These meetings are intended to improve communication, increase efficiency, and help ensure council tickets are completed in a timely manner. I've also been assisting the mayor with budget preparation for the upcoming fiscal year. The mayor, Sierra, and I also met with representatives from United Way of Pickens County to discuss opportunities for community partnerships, volunteer initiatives, and ways the city can continue strengthening community outreach efforts. Last week, the city also celebrated its third annual Public Service Recognition Week to recognize and appreciate the employees who serve the community each day. This was our first year having a sponsor, Clearwater Solutions, which allowed us to provide staff with lunch catered by Little Bistro, as well as coffee and muffins from Moose on Main. Director Manley, the mayor, and I attended the EPA Brownfields Conference in Columbia to gain additional insight into the grant process and learn more about successful projects across the state. On May 8th, Terracon conducted an LVP, lead-based paint, and ACM, asbestos-containing material survey on Rosewood. If the property tests are positive, the city may be eligible to apply for an EPA cleanup grant. Additional updates will be provided as information becomes available. We're preparing to begin reviewing the filings at Old City Hall to determine what actions need to be taken in accordance with South Carolina records retention policies. Adam and I reached out to 3 individuals and interviewed 2 applicants for the CDL driver position that became vacant after May 8th. We moved forward with Dakota Will. His start date is scheduled for today. Gina continues processing monthly reporting requirements, maintaining compliance with records retention and financial reporting procedures, and coordinating with outside agencies on ongoing projects and agreements. She also participated in professional development opportunities, worked on office organization efforts, and is prepared to assist with budget review and account analysis within the city's accounting software. Data continued maintaining daily operations, meeting monthly deadlines, assisting customers, processing payments, and keeping records and work orders updated. The department also worked through operational challenges this month, including delays with utility bill distribution and system access changes that created additional manual work for her. A large portion of April was dedicated to business license renewals, which were due on April 30th. Much of the month consisted in processing renewals, assisting businesses, answering questions, and ensuring accounts were completed prior to the deadline. At this time, 29 businesses within the city limits remain unpaid, along with 77 out-of-city businesses. Those businesses are operating without an active business license. Beginning next week, officers will be visiting these businesses in person to provide notice of their delinquent status and assist them in becoming compliant. Sierra also continued planning the city's 4th of July event and assisted with transitioning Gina into processing and accepting monthly hospitality tax reports. Payments. Coach Black, you are up next.
Pretty much going to go through a couple updates we got going on. Lakeland Light Sports, we got some quotes. We got some quotes for concrete and we got some quotes for asphalt. We're trying to determine which one is better for us and things like that. We're going to meet Dean, Katie, and we're going to meet on Friday and talk more about it. Rosewood Center here, we fixed the pothole that was requested by the council, and we also painted new handicap lines outside too as well. This little update we got going on. Southern Park, where the ground was messed up, so we kind of fixed that very quick. We put up some boards, and the beam plan was rotten out, so we replaced that, fixed that. Dugout Park, we got new windscreens that were sponsored by Nice Company and Olive Hills. And then also got a quote for 88 pathways from the concession stand to the Edgeland Field. Just noticed that these needs to have access to a pathway to be access from one ball field to another ball field without having any issues. City Stadium, noticed that we have a door that's coming apart, one of the metal doors. So I need to figure out the the size, because it's not a standard size door, we got to figure that out and try to get that in place. Then there's some work on that too as well. Couple things about the groundwork in the cemetery, me and Kay talked about it being cut, who's going to and things like that. Right now we got it actually contracted out. The question is for us is going to be if we do not put in the budget for them to come back, who takes over? But me and Adam and I have a discussion about the public works or the parks. Because once again, the cemetery is not a park for me. And I don't know why we have to maintain it. That's my thought process. And if we do maintain it, who pays for it besides? Because we don't own but one of them. I don't know why we maintain the other three. That's my view. The park grant that we got going on, we still working on that. Safe Solutions, we have contact with this Gary has we wait on this Gary to give us a okay on the contract thing, so we contact them, get back to them for what is going, how we get that started. And then also waiting on the tipping change, tipping as well. And Pigs County Recreation Grant, I was notified last week that we did get approval for the lights to be replaced for $21,850, I think it was, for the lights. And then they have approved, I think the last Pigs County Council meeting, that they approved for us to get a compact tractor. I just didn't know which one that they wanted. So Tyler Burke sent me that email after that, verified. So he said he's just waiting on confirmation to get it, and we should get it. I think the last quote, the cheapest quote I think we got was for 35 horsepower quarter, and that was $29,000 a little bit of change. So we had those two totals of that came out almost $50,000 that Pigs County Recreation Gate will give us to take it to that. Another thing I thought about is just going around naming our locations for like the city stadium, city gym, things like that. I think we can think about giving those a particular name. I have people stop by constantly asking me what's the workout equipment for the city gym. We don't have it. Can I get some? Yes. I think I got to give some great deal on, but I don't have any location to put workout equipment in that location. So that's something we need to think about. And so I put a couple examples on your sheets. Y'all have one in your packet. The city stadium needs a name. The Quebec field beside the city gym. The city gym needs a name. Things like that. So something to think about. Something like if we need to develop a nomination form, people would give nominations of people, schools like to name it after, things like that. I know that's what we did at the high school. When we named the auditorium.
The water tower people, is that not the one you talking about?
Right, the water tower.
I thought that was Morris. I thought that was Morris.
And then Morris is the one in the middle. Three fields of the
Okay. Gotcha.
So water tower field too, because I think somebody was kind of, when we was talking about, when we rent those fields out, to travel ball teams, it's like we can't rent the water tower out. Now we don't have no water tower, we're talking about the field. So, just kind of keep that in mind. One idea I would like to name out the people that was very impactful to the community back in the day before I moved to this area.
So, quick question. T-ball field, is the drainage situation still good?
Yes, sir. We good on that. My first year, I had a guy that donated his time and equipment and employees to fix that field.
That's the one inside the water tower.
Yes, sir.
That's what we call the T-ball field.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Third base.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so he brought in all the stuff and everything. All I paid for was dirt. Yeah, he brought the drainage, the rocks, and everything. That's my connection.
Yeah, I did want to just mention about the asphalt fix out here in the parking lot. That your group did that, and I appreciate that. Your quick response. I mean, that was less than 24 hours of the time that it was brought to your attention. You had somebody out there got it taken care of. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Anybody got any questions?
Next up, Adam Manley, Public Works Director.
repaired 5 water leaks, made 2 sewer taps, and 1 water tap. Had 5 sewer blockages that were cleaned and cambered. Along with cameron, our goal is to see if the issue can be repaired using jet fuel and clean roots out. Or if it's a broken pipe, we make note of it. We can actually take video of it and pinpoint it. We put it on the list for repair. We have begun, I think we have a list of 7 or 8 sections of lines that need repaired. We started this week making those repairs. We usually average at least 2 blockages a week, sometimes more, and the majority of them are kind of routine. Just once in a month thing. So I'm hoping to get those permanently repaired. Completed 53 work orders and 234 locate tickets, along with the Public Works Department, Utility Department, continued repairs and cleaning up of the maintenance wood and property. Get a chance to check it out. We're working on it, trying to get it cleaned up, inside and out. So, Utility Department, including myself, has asbestos training tomorrow and Wednesday in the city of Clemson. I found out that nobody's been certified in asbestos for a while, and that's something that's regulated by DEC and required. So, after tomorrow, after the annual class, that will be attended. Public Works Department picked up 21 tons of brush and 4 tons of furniture brown goods. We also continue to repair potholes as they're called in and clearing road driveways overgrown. We temporarily stabilized a portion of West Hunter Creek on the railroad with compacted dirt. I feel like it's okay to go ahead and open that for now. In the future, once we attain the correct equipment and material, I would like to permanently stabilize the geotech riprap. Also re-channel some of the water so it's not such a hard cut off the side of that road. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Do you have to open that room?
No,
You don't want to?
You don't want to.
You don't want to open it?
Check on your run.
I feel comfortable opening it up anytime.
Let's go for tomorrow morning for the asbestos class.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Victor Hunter, please, Chief.
In April, issued 100 warnings, 152 citations, same total custody arrests, a few for financial transaction card fraud, trade larceny, financial transaction card theft, a couple for people with marijuana, driving under suspension, driving without licenses, another one for people with marijuana. For the community and events, on April 3rd, the Liberty Police Department was recognized in Columbia and presented with the bronze level 2025 Law Enforcement Challenge Award. This is the department's first receipt of this award since 2020. We participate in the Law Enforcement Network Challenge, which includes monthly proactive traffic enforcement, participation in statewide campaigns focused on DUI prevention, seatbelt, child passenger safety, speed enforcement, and safety of vulnerable roadway users. Officer Barrico and myself attended the award ceremony. Officer Barrico serves as the designated point of contact and accepted the award on behalf of the department. April 11th, also conducted traffic control for Buddy's first annual car show, held in memorial of Buddy Phillips Sr. Included them closing roadways throughout the event, managing the cars, because they ended up with a lot more cars than they thought they were going to, so we extended it out to Front Street. And so they maintain a safe and secure environment for all the attendees and vehicles. The proceeds were distributed between the rec department and Pickens County Meals on Wheels. April 18th, Liberty officers in collaboration with neighboring law enforcement agencies and Youth Leadership Academy participated in the 4th annual Hot Pursuit 5K and 1 mile Catch a Cop event held at the Pickens County Airport, which was the first year out there. The event featured a 1 mile fun run in which the participants, the kids, chased uniformed first responders and collected flags. Following the run, they were able to ride back with all the officers in their marked units, like the sirens. It's always good for them to have that kind of interaction with those kids. And I was informed the event raised enough funds to support the installation of the wheelchair accessible swing at the playground located at Pickens County Airport, Highway 178. And on April 25th, Sergeant Thomas attended the Azalea Festival in collaboration with Pickens County Crime Stoppers. They operated an informational booth and distributed promotional items and outreach materials to all the attendees. And additionally, we received new Motorola V700 micro cameras at no cost. It replaced our V300 models. We're fortunate enough to, in collaboration with Motorola, obtain those. And obviously, they're an essential tool for us to utilize in promoting transparency, public trust, and officer safety, as well as training with utilizing those videos. I know he's got a question. Anyone else has a question?
So first I wanted to thank you for your trying to beat Coach Black on his speed on answering the work order information. So he got it within hours. So I appreciate that information you're able to provide, and I'll provide that to the constituent that asked the question. And also just a reminder is that everybody be aware of the police when they're out on the roads. My daughter's brother-in-law just passed away today in an accident down in Greenwood as a police officer and head-on collision. So just be careful out there, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Super good. All right. Let's go ahead and move into city council comments with our order that we started last month. We're going to go ahead and start with at-large council member John Humphrey.
Okay, I've spoken enough, but I will say that there's a work order system out there to try and go through the items as we get them from the constituents. Question I would have, just something to think about, is how do we track that visibly to the citizens. We talked about that. We said we had a software that was going to be available for that when we first got on, and just trying to figure out what that situation is and how people can see those and see how rapidly they are getting addressed. So that's good for the constituents to see how fast the reactions are, and also see the things that are being done. So that's the one thing I did have for that. And I did say the updated information to try and extend the golf cart time frame that I got from the chief. So information about that. So you'll have it in your email tomorrow.
All right, Councilmember Rhonda Whitaker.
I just wanted to thank Katie and Coach Black for responding quickly to a complaint that was made at the stadium. It was taken care of within 24 hours time, and I appreciate it, and I reported that information back to the citizen who reported it. That's all I have.
Councilmember Michael Campley.
This past month, I submitted 3 council question concern forms for Ward 1 to City Hall. Thank you guys for handling that. They were sent to Public Works for repairs. It was Reed Street, Bryan Street, and Wellborn Street from constituents who reached out on Facebook and through email. So thank you for setting up the system. I agree with John that it would be great to find a way to be more transparent with citizens rather than just us independently following up. To update on the East Beatty Street mill, I sent letters to 2 addresses in connection with the owner on file for the mill. Unfortunately, I've still not received any response yet, but I was informed that activity was seen at the mill site. I went later in the day when I was able to, and I did not see any activity, but I do plan to this week go out earlier in the day when it's more likely to try to make connection and let them know about the Brownsville grant with Terracon. I do have a plan for that. Get that process. Finally, I just want to say thank you to Mayor Wagner, Gina Oshia, Katie Sizemore, Sierra Wilson, everyone at City Hall that's doing a lot of work with the budget. I know it's a tremendous effort to find a way to allocate funds as efficiently as possible while meeting all the city's needs. So I appreciate the continued effort. Thank you.
Councilmember Jeff Massey.
I got a little bit to say. I know the last couple of meetings there's been a lot of talk of what staff is doing wrong and things that need to be fixed. And I understand that, but in the long term, it can be very discouraging to your staff and to your employees. I just want to physically say that I appreciate the mayor. I appreciate the deputy administrator, all the department heads, Chief Tedder. I had a situation on my property where a piece of equipment had been removed. Very first class on it. Got it taken care of. I want to say thank you for that. Adam, I want to say thank you to you and your staff. I had some signs that needed to be replaced over in my ward, and they were done very swiftly. So thank you. Josh, Coach Black, I want to say thank you for the programs that you put on this year. My son has had a blast playing flag football. Your work does not go unnoticed, and your staff does very well. So let them know that they are greatly appreciated. So the ladies in the office, I also want to say thank you. I know you guys have been working very diligently along with the mayor on the budget. So I just felt like you needed to hear that. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to the mayor's announcements. I hate to say this statement, my boss says it every single week, but he always says, I've been involved in all these things that you've already heard about. And I always feel like it's a cop-out, but I really have been involved in all these things you've heard about. So, to move on from there, this month has been full of budget work. I did want to make mention that during this process, there has been some dismissive language to staff, department heads from some members. I will always call this out. This is unacceptable and uncalled for. This means that our city staff are some of the best. They work every day very hard, and let's intend to give each other the same level of respect that we see and we would like for ourselves. Outside of budget work, we did start working with the Liberty Community Exchange to partner together on the Back to School project. So much more info on that coming soon. We've just kicked that off. Staff and I also met with United Way, who will be partnering with us in this project, and they are a wonderful group of people to meet with. We had a great time with them. In April, we welcomed Katie to the role of Deputy Administrator, April 13th, and I have been slowly handing off things to her. I'm so excited not to be working 80 hours anymore, that I covered since January when our past Deputy Administrator resigned. My family is finally able to see me again. Katie has already begun working with me and department heads to implement new internal policies. A couple of those have been securing the city material, how long we should be parking in front of City Hall, as it had been mentioned by another council member, and additional internal policies. We attended the Brownsville Conference in Columbia at the end of April, and we were able to get up to speed on what remains in the grant as well as next steps. I have been personally working with one of the new building owners at 28 West West Front Street to get him into a Phase 1 assessment, and it sounds like that has been kicked off successfully. We met with the county today to establish a plan forward for the current police department building, where we will work out funding while we work out funding for the new building. The county is completely on board with extending our stay as we work on that building, and we will be actually putting together a draft agreement so that we can move away from handshakes and into actual documentation, so we have a solid plan forward. We also discussed some other places that the county and city can work together over the coming years to benefit us both. And both the county administrator and our council member said that this is wonderful that we are finally getting to the same table together to work on county and city business together. And that is it. We are at the end of the session. Do I have a motion to adjourn? And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, everybody.